My stupid uncle, Ache Mansik. You mean my uncle, right? Ah, he was at it back in his day. You know, that darn thing. Was it socialism or something else? Anyway, he was into that and got caught. After serving time for it, he came out and now he's lying sick with a lung disease, my uncle-in-law. He married my aunt. Well, don't even mention it. What can people do, really? My woes. He's completely ruined. You see, after 10 years of studying, even attending university, he couldn't make good use of any of that. He spent his prime years in vain, branded as a criminal. He even contracted terrible diseases. In this wretched state, he lay in the corner of the small hut, resembling a cave, day and night, with his eyes shut tight. As for any property, where could there be any? He's a wretched man, not a penny to his name. My aunt, even she, gentle and submissive as she is, had to toil miserably to make ends meet, doing others' laundry, selling cosmetics, just to scrape by. Why doesn't that guy just die, when it would be better for everyone? Yet he persists in living. I pity my aunt. Oh, if only she had abandoned him in her youth, instead of hoping for some foolish luck, she wouldn't have to endure endless suffering. For nearly 20 years, she had to endure all these misfortunes. Having spent her youthful years sighing away 2 decades, it's only later in life that she had to care for that man, looking after him, who is no better than a corpse, worrying about his illness and managing to make ends meet. It's truly pitiful. What crime did she commit? Despite wishing for better fortunes, why couldn't she improve her situation? Our old-fashioned ladies, they can't adapt to modern ways or break free from old traditions. That's why. If only that guy would hurry up and die, my aunt would have a more comfortable life. Being kind-hearted and skilled, why can't she live comfortably wherever she goes? Let me see, she got married to that guy at 16, which, if I remember correctly, I was only 3 years old then. That's exactly 18 years ago. 18 years make 20 years, don't they? Back then, my uncle was young and claimed to study, traveling to Seoul and Tokyo for over a decade. When he grew a little older and became interested in women, he chased my aunt away to her parents' house and wanted to divorce or something. After finishing his studies, he got involved in some affair, and then he started roaming around like a madman and ended up living with another woman who claimed to be a former student. I've seen that other woman a few times myself, and let me tell you, she looked far from pretty, not even a single piece of beauty. How could someone like her be a mistress? They say there's no accounting for taste, but truth be told, my aunt looked far better than that other woman. Anyway, after that, he inevitably got caught and spent about 5 years behind bars. During that time, my aunt's life fell apart completely, with both her marriage and her family collapsing, leaving her utterly dependent. So what could she do? She was on the verge of starving to death. She had to somehow scrape by, and she had to wait for him to come out, so she came up to Seoul wishing for my help. That's how it was before he was released. At that time, despite my young age, I diligently searched around for job opportunities for my aunt, and things worked out well, so she soon became a housekeeper for Mr. Kurata's household. During that period, I sincerely pleaded with my aunt several times, urging her not to continue living in such a manner, but to consider remarrying. Though I now recognize that my viewpoint may have been naive, witnessing her situation was nonetheless embarrassing. Fortunately, there was another good opportunity. He was called Mr. Mihne, a person who had a fruit store in front of Mitsukoshi department store, well known for his good nature. Our store owner also knew about it very well. Mr. Mihne often asked me to persuade her, saying he wished to marry my aunt. Wouldn't it be better for her to be with someone like that? But no matter how many times I told her, she wouldn't listen and kept saying not to talk nonsense. Anyway, apart from all that, I've taken care of my aunt a lot up until now, and I don't think it's unreasonable. I lost my parents when I was 7 years old, and at that time, my maternal aunt, who lived modestly, took me in and raised me. Even their household wasn't doing well then. Not only my aunt, but also my maternal grandfather and great-grandmother cherished me because they didn't have other descendants nearby. I lived in that household until I was 12 years old and attended school for 4 years. If that household hadn't fallen into decline, I would probably have attended a specialized school by now. With such kindness, I couldn't just leave it unreturned, so in my own way, I tried to repay as much as I could. Even now, my aunt occasionally comes by and complains about how tough things are, which can be quite annoying. Whenever I try to offer help, it seems like I can't solve my own problems. Well, usually I end up just rejecting her requests. But aside from that, for example, during holidays, I might buy some meat or drop by to chat because I definitely don't want to upset her. During that time, my aunt worked as a housekeeper for the Kurata family for a whole year, earning a monthly salary of 5-1, which she diligently saved. Occasionally, she took on extra sewing work to earn a little more, and when it was time to leave, the Kuratas generously gave her an extra 7-1 as a bonus. Altogether, it added up to about 101, which was quite a substantial amount. With that money, we managed to rent a small room and buy some household items, and then her pitiful husband was released from jail, so she took him in. I went to see him on the day he was released, but when I arrived at the jail door, my aunt was already waiting with tears streaming down her face. The woman he once loved so dearly, even to the point of death, was nowhere to be seen. That's how it goes with other people's mistresses, isn't it? Our uncle was looking around anxiously, wondering if that woman would show up. Not a shred of dignity left, huh? Apart from my aunt and me, there wasn't a soul to be seen, let alone that woman showing up. So he was about to get into the car, but suddenly vomited blood. Later, I heard that he had been vomiting blood for about a month. Well, he could barely walk on his own. I almost had to carry the dying man back home, and from that day on, my aunt nursed him tirelessly day and night, doing everything possible. Thanks to her devoted care, his health gradually improved, and now he's completely recovered. Well, it's truly miraculous. The dedication of women is truly awe-inspiring. It's been exactly 3 years. Even if my deceased parents were alive, I couldn't have done for them what she did for him. So you see, if our uncle had even a bit of conscience, well, I should quickly become diligent, make money, and comfortably support that wife. I should repay this kindness and the past sins. Shouldn't he think like that? If he were to repay my aunt's kindness, even if he carried her on his back to ensure her feet didn't touch the dirt, he still wouldn't be able to fully repay her. In any case, he should start setting himself straight now. Sure, he may not be able to enter a managerial position or work at a company considering his past, but he shouldn't blame anyone else for his actions. So, he should just roll up his sleeves and find some work to do. It's quite a spectacle to see a university graduate doing manual labor, but there's no other choice, is there? When I quietly reflect on this, if my great-grandparents' household hadn't fallen into such decline, and if I had graduated from a specialized school, I might have ended up like my uncle. So it's fortunate that I didn't pursue higher education too much and took this path instead. That's what I think. In fact, our uncle, who has even graduated from college, now relies solely on manual labor for a living. Despite barely completing 4 years of regular schooling, I, with a clear path ahead, am much better off than him. Oh, but you know what's really baffling? Instead of doing some hard labor and trying to make ends meet, this troublemaker of an uncle seems content with just scraping by. Then, you know what's next? It's absolutely mind-boggling. No, seriously, why does he keep doing it? Why can't he just finish it once and for all and be done with it? But really, is that how you earn a living? Is that how you gain honor? Ultimately, isn't it just playing with fire and risking imprisonment? Perhaps it's as addictive as opium. Maybe that's why once you taste it, you can't quit. But in reality, it's not as enjoyable or satisfying as it seems. It's just reckless behavior. Simply put, it's foolishness. I heard somewhere in the West, some lazy good-for-nothings gathered on a sunny side and schemed to play and eat. Our store master would tell such stories kindly. Those guys arguing with each other saying, hey, in this world there are rich and poor people, so it's just not fair. People are born with the same physical features and bodies, so how is it fair that some live rich while others are poor? Therefore, the right thing to do is for the rich to share what they have equally with us poor folks. Hey, that's a good point. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's share. With this kind of persuasion, they stood up and incited a riot or something. Then, isn't that what the troublemakers are doing? People sometimes have different fortunes. So if you work hard and seize opportunities, you may become wealthy. But if you are lazy or don't seize opportunities, you may live in poverty. Isn't this how things generally are? Isn't it unfair to force others to share their belongings? Those who do that are thieves, not just troublemakers. If people continue to act like thieves, lazy people will become even lazier, constantly chasing and stealing from wealthy people. Won't the world become a haven for thieves? If one day the wealthy are stripped of everything they've amassed and can no longer provide, won't that be the end of the world as we know it? Each person, instead of working to produce their own food and clothing, will just idle around and wait to snatch what others have produced. But where will the food and clothing come from if everyone acts like this? The world will collapse. Those lazy and hypocritical individuals among the poor who don't want to work and instead steal from the wealthy contribute to this chaos. People say it's precisely what happened in Russia. So as a consequence, with farmers failing to produce grain, thousands of people are dying of starvation. It's crystal clear, isn't it? They were all talking big about getting a sweet taste immediately, but look at the mess they've made of things. Oh, indeed, that wicked practice spread like wildfire throughout both Eastern and Western countries in no time. It even wreaked havoc in Japan for a while, and even the Koreans were imitating it. However, nowadays, thanks to strict enforcement and prohibition by the government, it has significantly declined, and there are hardly any people with such intentions anymore. Well, that's a good point. If it's something beneficial, why does the country prohibit it and imprison those who engage in it as if it's some archenemy? If it's good and beneficial, the country should encourage it instead, even offering rewards for excellence. Activities like sports, martial arts, calligraphy, and radio exercises are all beneficial, so the country supports and promotes them. What's the point of having a country then? It's supposed to discern such things well, give appropriate guidance, and strive to ensure that people can live comfortably according to their respective abilities, isn't it? Even if they had pursued socialism and allowed people to do as they pleased without interference from the government, what would have been the outcome? I wonder how the world would have evolved by now. Many others may have suffered losses, but even if it was just me, what could I have done? Everything would have been messed up beyond recognition. My ideals and plans are like this. Since the master of our store treats me with special favor and trusts me, if I stay for another 10 years, he'll probably invest a large sum and set up a separate business for me. Yes, with that in mind, I've decided to run my business for 30 years until I reach my 60th birthday and accumulate at least 100,000 won. With 100,000 won, I might be as wealthy as a millionaire. Isn't that enough success, right? And because our Daisho store owner also has a say, I intend to marry a Japanese girl. Daisho even promised to assist with everything, finding a suitable match and acting as a mediator. Japanese women are truly exceptional. I wouldn't want a Korean woman even if she were given to me for free. Traditional women are reserved but lack understanding, so they didn't get along well with people from the mainland. Modern women, even if educated, are too arrogant to tolerate. So, the ideal woman blends old and new. Japanese women are truly the best, don't you think? They have charming personalities, are modest, kind, knowledgeable without arrogance, and much more. And it's not just about marrying a Japanese woman. I'll change my name to a Japanese one, live in a Japanese-style house, wear Japanese clothes, eat Japanese food, name our children with Japanese names, and send them to Japanese schools. Japanese schools, that's the way to go. Sending them to Korean schools would be a waste, spoiling the children. I'll completely get rid of the Korean language and only use Japanese. That way, even in my daily life, I'll behave like a Japanese person and accumulate wealth as successfully as a Japanese does. That's my ideal and plan, to become wealthy with that 100,000 won. With a bright path ahead, I'm diligently walking my way. But you know, the thought of those crazy fools embracing socialism that will ruin the world gives me chills. It's dreadful just to hear about it. If the world collapses and turns upside down, what can I do about it? Everything will become meaningless. So where's the greater injustice than that? Well, our Daisho's words make perfect sense. For typical crimes like robbery, theft, or fraud, the culprit can at least bear their guilt since they directly benefit from the stolen money. But that socialism nonsense, or whatever it is, causing chaos throughout the world and disrupting the entire country, is Unforgivable. Forgiveness, you say. If it were me, I would just sweep all those fools away without a second thought. Just thinking about it, I must say our uncle is no less of a disgrace. Honestly, if it weren't for my aunt, why would I be running around like a lunatic trying to find that gentleman? Even if I were dying, I wouldn't give a darn about that guy. However, that's when he repents for past sins and washes away the wickedness in his heart. Though they say old habits die hard, he'll remain the same. So, because of that, whenever I happen to visit, I make sure to keep my distance. Even if we happen to sit face to face, I give him a piece of my mind and don't let him get away with anything. Last time I really gave him a stern talking to. Oh, and I heard from my aunt after that he said I was utterly useless, that I couldn't be of any help to anyone. I was so dumbfounded when I heard that. People should have some shame, but really, even if someone lacks shame, there should be limits. That uncle of mine saying I'm utterly useless, that I couldn't be of any help to anyone, how many mouths does he have to speak such nonsense? Even if a Korean mute were to speak, I might have nothing to say, if I were him. Does he think anything that comes out of that mouth makes sense? Maybe that was meant to be some kind of admonition, like, if he keeps saying such things to me face to face, he'll get scolded, so he mentioned it subtly to my aunt. It's truly fortunate that God gave us two nostrils. If I had only one nostril, I would have suffocated hearing such nonsense. Well, even though I haven't studied as much as he has, I've been recognized twice as an exemplary clerk, working diligently as an assistant manager in someone else's store. Others praise me for being smart, talented, and obedient, and see me as a promising young man with a bright future ahead. But to him, I seemed like a worthless and useless person? Haha, that's right. It seems like because what he does is right in his own eyes, he thinks everyone else is doomed if they do things differently. So if I had followed that darn socialism of his, I could have ended up in jail with a criminal record or suffering from some disease, right? Then I wouldn't have been seen as worthless or useless. It almost happened that way. Truly. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and blah blah? It's like they're talking about our uncle, isn't it? That day was no different. After giving him a piece of my mind, I heard that he said such things to my aunt. It happened to be my day off, so I stopped by to have a chat with my aunt in the morning. She had gone to do sewing work at someone else's house, leaving our uncle lying lazily downstairs as usual. To my surprise, near his head were stacks of old Korean magazines, and he was flipping through them. Out of boredom, I picked one up and started flipping through it. I must say it was surprisingly uninteresting. Why do Koreans bother making magazines like these? There are no pictures, no comics, and to make matters worse, it's filled with dense Chinese characters. Who exactly do they expect to read this? For people like us, reading Korean alphabet is already a struggle, let alone deciphering these complex Chinese characters mixed in. It's not easy to understand the meaning. Some of these texts, written entirely in the Korean alphabet, are all novels, and reading them is not only exhausting, but a novel written by a Korean is far from entertaining. I haven't read Korean newspapers or magazines for years. Are there any magazines like Kingu or Shonen Kurabu? I really like those. With furigana on each Chinese character, you can smoothly read and understand the meaning of any passage you open. And no matter which passage you read, you'll find insightful lessons or enjoyable stories. The novels are truly entertaining. Among them, the Kikujikan novels, they're so unique, sweet, and enjoyable. And Yoshikawa Eiji's novels, they're genuine historical tales filled with excitement. All those novels are entertaining like that. There's plenty of manga and loads of pictures. Plus, they're pretty affordable. You can snag last month's issue for just 15 johns, and then sell them for 5 johns once you've finished reading them all. If they're going to produce magazines, they might as well do it properly. Despite Koreans often boasting, they seem incapable of producing a decent magazine to read. On that day, when I saw the state of the magazine, there was no sign of any interesting content. I flipped through the pages, hoping to find some manga or pictures, but to my surprise, there was our uncle's name. So out of curiosity, I quickly opened it and found the title on the first line, Economy, Society, something like that. Just by looking at that, it already seems plausible. Since my uncle studied economics at university, he must know the ins and outs of economics, and also, since he embraced socialism, he must be well versed in that too. So it's certain that he would have written about how economics and socialism relate to each other, and which side is right. Well, whether you read it or not, it's all nonsense. Despite studying economics at university, he probably insisted that socialism was right and economics was wrong, all while not bothering to accumulate wealth. Anyway, out of curiosity about the fact that it was written by the guy, I skimmed through it a bit. But lo and behold, I don't seem to have any skill in reading and understanding it. Yes, the characters themselves may be somewhat understandable to those who are not very knowledgeable, but piecing them together to form a coherent story is a different matter altogether. I was feeling frustrated, so decided to give up reading it and confront him directly. Sir? What's the matter? You wrote something about economics and society here. Does that mean you're talking about doing economics? Or socialism? What? He responded with confusion. Perhaps he had forgotten what he had written after a long time, or maybe my questioning was too strict for him to answer promptly. So I reiterated my points. Sir, isn't economics about saving money to become wealthy? But socialism isn't about taking away the money saved by wealthy people? What the what? No, please listen. Where did you learn about such economics, such socialism? Well, isn't economics about earning a lot of money, saving it carefully, and investing the rest? That's the common understanding of economics in everyday language. However, as a field of study, economics encompasses broader principles beyond just saving money. What's the difference then? If economics isn't about saving money, why study it? Economics involves studying the allocation of resources, understanding incentives, and analyzing how societies make decisions about production, consumption, and distribution. It's not solely focused on personal financial management. Then why did you study economics for 5 years if you couldn't save money? You must have misunderstood. Maybe I did. You have a point there. He doesn't have a word to refute. No matter how educated he is, if he's like this. Sir? Yes? So, instead of studying economics to save money and become wealthy, did you study socialist economics to redistribute wealth from the rich? Do you know what socialism is? Of course I do. I proceeded to explain socialism thoroughly. As I looked at him, he smirked once and replied, "So that's socialism? Sounds like a bunch of scoundrels." Well then, do you think socialism is for scoundrels? When did I say that? I said those people are just a bunch of scoundrels. Exactly, that's what socialism is. You said it yourself. This kid really knows his stuff. He's speechless again? Well, sir, yes? You should take care of yourself too. What do you mean? Aren't you concerned? What's there to worry about for someone like me? I should be worried about you. I have some ambitious plans. Like what? Prepare to be surprised. I explained further. After listening, he seemed to ponder for a moment. You're quite something. Why? Why do you think I'm pitiful? Sir? Yes, I said I'm pitiful? No, I was talking to myself. Still, listen. Yes? Among people, regardless of who they are, there's nothing more deceptive than flattery. Flattery? From kings to beggars, everyone navigates life according to their own standards. Deceiving one's character and engaging in flattery for a hypocritical life is the most pitiful. People aren't necessarily happier with 2 bowls of rice than with just 1. What does that mean? It means you're going to marry a Japanese woman, change your name, and adopt all Japanese customs. Well, isn't that good? That's the point. If it's genuine cultural appreciation or wise judgment, then perhaps it's understandable. But if it's just to please others, your master, neighbors, or acquaintances, well, of course, I need to earn the trust of the daisho and get along well with my Japanese neighbors and acquaintances. Isn't that right? You still don't grasp the ways of the world, sir. Despite your age and education, your understanding may not rival mine from experience. What kind of world do you think we're living in? Hey, kid. Yes? You just talked about understanding the ways of the world, right? Yes. It's like you said the future looks bright, correct? Yes. You mentioned saving 100,000 won until your 60th birthday, right? Yes. Though our interpretations of understanding the ways of the world may differ, it's not as straightforward as it seems. Yes. No matter how much effort one exerts, there's an inevitable force in this world that flows without relent, akin to the ways of the world. Ultimately, one cannot escape its influence. Yes, simply put, no matter how vigorously one plans or creates opportunities, the outcome may not always align with intentions. Well, sir, I once read in a magazine called Kingu that even the Western hero Napoleon said something like that. He claimed, "I create opportunities." He believed impossible only existed in a fool's dictionary. If we keep planning, creating opportunities, and striving, what in this world is impossible? If we fail once, we gather courage and rise again. Haven't you heard of 7 times down, 8 times up? Napoleon may have triumphed by adhering to the ways of the world, but it's said he encountered failure when opposing it. You've only seen those who succeeded after repeated attempts, but do you know of the countless others who fell permanently after the 9th failure? Nevertheless, hear me out. Even if I'm nobody, I will succeed. Does that mean you can't try just because you think you'll fail before attempting? Don't you need to try to reach the sky to know how high it is? He continues with an unreachable metaphor until the end. What's the point of such talk? Are there people so foolish that they remain unaware of how high the sky is until they try to reach it? I paused for a moment and then continued. Sir? What is it? What will you do once your health returns? What do you mean? In the future? Future? What are your plans? What grand plans do you think I have? Then are you living without any plans? Who said that? Do you have plans? Well, yes. What are they? Just the usual things I've been doing. So you'll continue doing that? Probably. Sir? Sir? What is it? Please stop now. Stop? Yes. Do you think I do this out of boredom? It seems like it. Sir? Sir? Why? How old are you now? I'm 33. Then shouldn't you quit such a thing and decide to earn a living for your home? What's the point of doing that? If there's no point, then why bother doing it? I'm not doing it with any particular purpose in mind. So you're doing it without any hope or purpose? Hope? Purpose? Yes, because individual purposes or hopes are different matters, so it's not a problem. Is there even such a thing? Thing? Yes, such a thing. Sir? Sir? Why? Aren't you grateful to your wife? I am. Don't you think she's pitiable? Pishable? Well, if you say so, then she is. So you're aware of it? I am. You know it, and yet? Some people find solace in suffering, savoring the bitterness until they discover sweetness within it. It's not for everyone, but for those who dedicate their hearts and minds to a particular task, it becomes such. Thus, when fully immersed, suffering can become enjoyable. Regarding my wife, if she faces hardships without merely suffering, then enduring those hardships can become enjoyable. So, do you just consider yourself fortunate in that regard? No, not really. In that case, shouldn't you repay her kindness? Well, I'm not unaware of her kindness, but... So when you're finally recovered from your illness. I'm busy, you see. Well, take a look at this, pretending to be busy while lying down doing nothing. There isn't the slightest glimmer of hope that this guy will ever get his act together. He's just a useless speck, causing trouble for others and bringing only harm to the world. He should be dead as quickly as possible. He should die, and it would be fitting for him to die again. But instead, he's just wobbling through life without dying. Why? Published in 1938.